Welcome everybody to the Gary Neville Podcast, which this time has a perhaps slightly reluctant guest in Jamie Carragher. We come to you from Anfield off the back of Manchester United's first Premier League win here for very nearly a decade. I was always sure I was going to start with a winner, so Gary, this time it is you, perhaps improbably. Why did Manchester United win?
Well, look, we'll come back to that because I always think that we've been so critical of United over the last few years. And this is one of the most famous victories that we've seen, not expected. And I want to take us back probably to an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half before the game when those teams came through. And not just me, but when I saw the team, I thought, we've got no chance. And I had 3 or 4 texts from United fans saying, oh my God, Casemiro and Bruno in midfield, Maguire and Dijk at the back. You know, the pace of Liverpool, honestly, the energy in midfield of Liverpool and the legs. And with Casemiro having played 2 games in international break for Brazil and obviously travelled from Asia, you're thinking, how can that be right? But that was pre-match. I have to say, within a minute, that had gone because it was a brilliant moment for United, a really good bit of play from Ahmad, slipping it into Mbeumo. And that just got them off on the right footing. And then from that moment in, they were really resilient, they were competitive. They defended set pieces well. They looked dangerous on the counter-attack. I thought the front three were really good. I thought he managed the game really well, Ruben Amorim, in terms of, you know, looking at Casemiro after an hour, Ahmad after an hour at wing-back, thinking, OK, let's get some legs on there. Let's get some more defensive stability at wing-back. Let's get Ugarte on for Casemiro because he has had those 2 trips. So everything seemed to go to plan, and then Ruben Amorim managed the game really well. And the most, I think the most pleasing thing is that they've won having Liverpool equalised. Because when Liverpool equalised, you thought this is going to be the Alamo, the kitchen sink, the lot, and Liverpool are going to go and get a winner. But there's something just before, I thought United would score a second. There was something about that Liverpool team that didn't have enough defensive mindsets on the pitch, and I just thought United are going to do, and they did literally within a minute of that happening. So look, they had a bit of luck. You need a bit of luck. The goalkeeper's made some good saves. They've hit the post 3 times, Liverpool, but I actually think United deserved what they got today because they applied themselves to the game properly. That was a proper sort of effort that they put in there, and that's not always been the case over the last 10 years in those games that we've seen Liverpool beat United.
OK, Jamie, so why did Liverpool lose?
Listen, Liverpool are not good enough defensively right now, and every team that come up against them feel like they can score goals and create chances. Now, Man United's record here over the last 10 years is not just a defeat. I think they've only scored 3 goals, I think, in 9 or 10 games here. But obviously, you get the goal early on. We can get into that. Obviously, look at Virgil van Dijk. But Manchester United looked threatening every time they went forward. They had real big chances in that first half. And it feels like it happens every game. And I keep going back to the Newcastle game because Newcastle United, I think, you know, scored a couple of goals and had big chances with 10 men. And something, whether we talk about the balance not being right now, Florian Wirtz hasn't played in the last couple of games, whether these players are a team who don't actually want to do the work without the ball. It's all about getting on the ball and you know, getting people between the lines. Listen, it's something we'll look at tomorrow again on Monday Night Football. But yeah, just listen, it could have gone the other way. Liverpool had big chances in the game, but when I was speaking about what I felt Liverpool looked like in the early weeks of the season, I feared this happening because of the way the games were going and scoring, you know, last-minute goals. And it almost feels like once that invincibility's gone, a little bit with Man City last season, where you think every team feels like they've got a chance. And something just come to me then when we were talking, and I was thinking about that. I remember playing Arsenal here and beating them 2-1, the invincible team. And I think they'd lost the game before, maybe at Old Trafford. And that team, just once they'd lost one, they just went on this run of losing games because everyone just got this belief they could go and beat them at the time. As I said, it happened to City last season. And it feels like Liverpool now have just lost that sort of cloak of invincibility. Where, you know, last season they went months without losing a game. And then once they've lost one, you know, the chink in their armour is there. And it just feels like every game they go into now, the opposition have got real belief they can score goals.
You referred to it, that sort of famous night, the first night here against Bournemouth when you had that great exchange that everyone so loved with Arne Slot about your worries around the team and how everyone was... How do you reflect on that conversation now in the context of what you've seen since and especially today? All of those substitutions when Liverpool were chasing the game were, for the neutral, and I'm the only neutral here, were thrilling, really thrilling. But I wonder what that made you feel in your gut.
I mean, I thought it was a little bit early to go so gung-ho, and I also felt a little bit of a playing central midfield. You think, and get him sort of higher up the pitch. But Liverpool got back into the game, and listen, I don't really know where the corner comes from, if that had anything to do, but Man United's goals come from a set piece again. And it's Harry Maguire heading it in. Where are my two big centre-backs? Where are my big players dealing with that? So I'll go back to that as well. So I'm not quite sure that had something to do with it. Tactically, Liverpool still had big chances at the end. You think of the Gakpo header, the one where a few of them dummied it as well. So I don't think Liverpool actually lost this game necessarily because of the changes Arne Slot made, because I don't think United sort of counter-attacked and went through on goal or anything like that. But listen, the small margins right now, whereas at times at the start of the season they were going for them, they're now going against them, and it just feels like every game goes to the wire. And the reason I mentioned at the start of the season is, and we had this little debate, I never want my team to be described as the most entertaining team, and this game being end-to-end and anyone can score. No, you like watching teams who do that who are not your team. You don't like your team doing that. You want your team to be in control. And very rarely this season have Liverpool ever been in control of a game of football.
I think the individual performances of Liverpool's defenders was really poor, and decision-making. The left-back's not settled in. There's no point in me going over that again. I said on this podcast, I think 3 weeks ago, he plays like a 10-year-old left-back. He's all over the place. At right-back, Conor Bradley was okay today. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong. But, Van Dijk, I've not seen Van Dijk as shaky as that. Now, sometimes when a player comes back from an international break, it's been him that's been holding it together. But he had one of his worst games today. He wasn't himself, and I think if you stalwart, your captain, your giant in the team isn't actually playing well from the first minute, it does rub off on everybody as well. And he had that sort of, I don't know what he was doing on the first goal. He sort of hands, the good thing is he's in there now. Turned up for the interview, so he's obviously, he's Liverpool captain. And he's been one of the greatest centre-backs, and is one of the greatest centre-backs in the world and one of the greatest centre-backs in Premier League history. But he's had a difficult day out there today. And then Liverpool in midfield just looked a little bit all over the shop. But look, come on to Salah shortly. All of them are sort of just a little bit short of where they are. Wirtz hasn't settled in. Let's just say it. Isak has not settled in quite yet. I mean, he's a brilliant player. Mo Salah is well below his best. You've got three £150 million players there, whether they're £150 million in terms of how much Liverpool have paid for them, or worth that just generally in terms of their world-class nature like Salah. You've got three players that are not firing as well. That doesn't half have a big impact. And when obviously Alisson's missing, Van Dijk's not at his best, it is a ripple effect through the team. And United today, to be fair, they looked like they were dangerous on every single attack. I thought United could score two. I didn't stop saying it even when Liverpool scored and went to 1-1. I just thought, look, I don't feel Liverpool are safe here. I think United have got to go and get a second, and I thought they would get a second. I thought the ball from Bruno Fernandes, by the way, for the second goal was special. That was a brilliant ball into the box. It's a bad night for Liverpool. I thought after the international break they would recalibrate and reset. Sometimes when you're a team that's won a title like they have, you sometimes need a break where you just say to the right, now come on, kick back in, concentration, focus. We're not going to give any goals away. But in a minute of this game, that goes out the window. So even if they have tried to reset mentally, after a minute, they're a goal down and they're thinking, oh. And for United, if you score here in the first half, I always think you've got a chance, because it does make this crowd nervous. This crowd is a great asset, and you nearly saw it being a great asset towards the end, but it also can be a little bit of a pressure. If obviously the away team score, and United scored early, and it really gave them confidence. And I was really, look, there have been times where I've not been proud of United in the last 5-10 years, because I think they've fallen well short in matches, but I thought they showed a spirit and a heart today.
Is there something in Manchester United when I think of Amorim? And listen, it's one result, and we can't disguise it's been really poor since he's come in, and in some ways it probably couldn't have got any worse in terms of the games they've won, losing that cup final to Spurs, even the start of this season. But I just think twice he's come to Anfield. I think he's been to Man City and won. fortunate. I think they've been to Arsenal maybe once, or maybe in a cup game or something. And we talk about the system a lot, and one of the reasons why I don't think it suits a club of Manchester United is because I don't think it's a system that puts you on the front foot and you can get after teams. But maybe when you're the team who are not expected to go and win the game, it can be a difficult system to sort of break down once you get into that back five and that four in front. And we question that four in front at times. But when you're at home, the attacking players think, well, I should be up this pitch. I'm not really going to get back and tuck it in defence. But Mason Mount's picked for that role today. And it is a difficult sort of nut to crack for any team. That's why Crystal Palace have joy. Because Crystal Palace are a team who are not seen as the team who've always got to take the game to the opposition. They can sit there. And more often than not, games that they go into, they're not expected to win, or they're sort of, a mid-table team, and he's getting more out of them because of that. Maybe that's why he's done well in these big games, especially away from home. But in terms of going forward and being on the front foot, Manchester United scoring goals and winning games, that's why I think it will always hold them back, this system.
I thought United in these 4 games, obviously Liverpool away, Brighton at home, Forest away, Tottenham away, I was thinking 7, 8 points is great. 7 points would be par out of these 4 games. Now there's a real chance, and they should be thinking to go and get 10 points out of these 4 games. That would get them back up in, I think, to the top 6, and that's what I think they need this month. But let's be clear what we thought before the game. I thought if United lose here today, which they're more than likely to do when I saw the team sheet, I'm thinking Ruben Amorim is going to be going into that Brighton game under real pressure with Forest and Tottenham to come. This is a complete turnaround game, this, but it has to be something that they don't go and they can't get carried away with this now. They've got a week before Brighton. They have to go and beat Brighton next Saturday, or else it becomes something that sort of lessens what's happened here today. They've got a kickstart, springboard from what they've done here today. Because to win at Anfield is special in any season. This is a bloody tough place to play. To win here is the hardest ground, honestly. And to win here tonight, they should be really proud, because it's a big achievement. But they've got to kick on from here.
I just listen. We're seeing pictures here, Harry Maguire, and of course you'll know I'm absolutely devastated with this result. But I think if anyone is going to get a winning goal here, and he almost got the winning goal last season, I must say, out of that dressing room I'm looking at, I'm probably pleased it's him, because the amount of criticism that lad's taken, and that's the nature of being, at one stage he was the captain of Manchester United, and Manchester United are a fantastic club and have huge standards. And of course, listen, it hasn't happened for him in terms of, his price tag and coming to the club, but that's something he'll always remember, and he'll always be remembered for Manchester United fans for getting the winner at Anfield. So if someone was going to get the win, I'm probably quite pleased, because that lad has been through a lot, and it can't have been easy what he's gone through over the years. So and you know what, he always fronts up. He's always in that team. He could have moved a couple of times. He can get away from the limelight, go to a lesser club. You're not in the spotlight as much, but he hasn't. He's been there, for Manchester United. He's there. He doesn't play every week. So if it's going to happen, fair play to him.
Yeah, no, there is a lovely human element to that, Jamie, and I'm glad you brought it up. And actually, Harry Maguire's an example of a player who could be scarred by the experiences he's been through. And the Manchester United team as a whole could be pretty scarred. I appreciate, even as a non-player, that scoring after a minute helps in terms of confidence. But didn't they look surprisingly confident today? Didn't the selection seem to work out? Didn't Cunha and Burmo and Mount work together?
Peter, absolutely. I thought the front three played well. I thought Casemiro and Fernandes in midfield probably had the best game that they could have had together. I think, honestly, I was really worried about that. I always worry when Delict's in that right channel with Maguire at centre-back. I always think there's not enough pace in there, but I thought there's a few problems with Gakpo in this first half, but it was fine. I think for Harry Maguire, it was a really good day for him. I think both Delict and him both want that central defensive part. But like you say, they've got to go from today and think, right, I don't think they should be celebrate tonight in a sense of celebrating and thinking how proud you should be to win it. But I hope as they get on that bus, I hope there's a mindset of, right, come on, this is it. We're not going back there again. We're not going back into that bottom half of the table. They've just gone into the top half of the table, I think, to 9th. Yeah. And I think if they win next week, they've got to start thinking of pushing up the league, because they've got to get to a point whereby there's stability at the club. The only way there's going to be stability is through winning football matches. So, look, it's a great day for Manchester United. I think Maguire and all of them should be proud of how they played. They really did a good job here. And, yeah, I was surprised at the levels they got to today. But let's see it again next Saturday night against Brighton.
Yeah. So from Liverpool's point of view, Jamie, and again, we don't want to be... It is only one game. It's a very, very big game. But for Liverpool, it's now, of course, 4 games. And they're a little bit off the pace. Nobody's saying they can't win the league anymore, anything silly like that. But it kind of brings a punctuation point. It brings a natural reflection. I mean, what happens next with Liverpool? How do they improve from here?
Could you go Joe Gomez right? And it sounds crazy. Sometimes we used to do this. Could you go Joe Gomez right back, Robertson left back with Canati and Van Dijk, and just say, right, okay, for a couple of weeks we're going to bulldoze our way back into this league and basically keep clean sheets? Is there something in that?
Listen, I think that's probably something we'd have done in our day. I just don't think Arne Slot's that type of manager. I think he always wants to be the manager who's sort of his team are making the play, they're on the ball, so he'd want a full-back to actually progress the ball forward and, you know, be attacking, if you like, in terms of the team that he picks. That could be something maybe you do in a big away game, of course. But I think for Liverpool right now, because the games come so quick and fast, you know, before you know, you're at Brentford Saturday night, and how long? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, when does a blip become a crisis? When is it something? Hang on, you know, we are talking about the team who ran away with the league title last season, spending £400 million in the summer. You know, so people can say it's early days and you're looking at different players, but when you spend that type of money and you're the champions, you're talking about really high expectations. And I keep going back to it felt like a Real Madrid summer. You know, that's what Real Madrid go and do. Go and spend the most money on the best players in the market in a summer. It's not Liverpool like that. So it's very different Liverpool summer than we've probably ever seen before. And yeah, I'm worried for Liverpool in terms of not just the results, it's the performances all seen. So the games they've won, they've never looked convincing, and that's almost a bigger worry for me than the actual results that they're in right now.
Just on Salah, the interesting thing is obviously there's the questions are being asked about him, whether it's his age, whether it's his one season too many, all the other stuff. But the strange thing in watching Salah is usually when a player is sort of getting to the... Usually a player getting towards the end of his career, what you notice is the physical decline. And I'm not seeing a physical decline in him in respect of sort of like some of his sprints look quite sharp, he looks busy in the box. But just like crazy things like when the ball comes to the back post, his technique on his kicking and his sort of crossing, that's the thing that looks well off. So you look, there's a couple of moments there at the back post where you think to yourself, that's not Mo Salah. He had that chance where he sort of dragged it really uglily, like, you know, to the left of the post. You think that's just his technique. That Mo Salah could probably play when he's 52 and still have a good technique. So that's the bit that's surprising me, is the technical bit.
I think Mo Salah has declined physically in terms of
when
he first came.
It's the technical decline that we're seeing.
Yeah, but what I would say is,
but, you know, problems.
No, I agree. But even when Mo Salah's been at his absolute best, he can have games where he looks technically poor. He can just... He's one of those players who at times, you think for such a great player, sometimes the performances, and this is not this season, this is over his time for Liverpool. We all know as Liverpool fans, and you put up with it because you think he'll score 2 in a couple of weeks. You know, he goes through these little runs. Now, when he first came in, he had blistering pace, him and Mane. That's not there so much. But he still had a sharpness about him. I'm not quite sure that sharpness is still there.
I still think he looks quite sharp.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think he looks sharp in those little areas where you'd want him to look sharp in the sort of like last 18, 20 yards of the pitch. But as the ball comes to the back post on 2 or 3 occasions, or for instance, the Verts assist for him that would have been an assist at Chelsea, and you think he's got to finish that. Today, there's 2 chances at the back post. You think he's got to finish that. It's the technical aspect of his game that's letting him down at the moment for me, more than the physical aspect.
Yeah, no. There's no doubt he can at times look not like a world class, but he can look like an average player technically. I've said that before. That was at his heyday. He has lost something physically, but I do worry, and I do think this is a real conundrum for the manager going forward. What you do. It was interesting you mentioned in commentary that he brought him off. Now, that's not the first. If you remember, Jurgen Klopp used to bring him off a lot. If he wasn't playing particularly well, Jurgen Klopp was not shy. So that shows you that in years gone by, Mo Salah could be having a poor game and he'd still get brought off, even if he had an extra little bit of energy or sharpness. But I do think right now it's really interesting what the manager does with him, because I think we're at the stage with Mo Salah right now where he shouldn't be playing every game. It shouldn't be a case of like he's one of the first names on the team sheet. It should be a case of, yes, he's in your best team. He plays in home games. Maybe you'd have to think about it. Liverpool have got 2 away games, one in Europe, one in Brentford. I don't think he plays in both of them. So I think these things have got to start coming maybe into the manager's head, and maybe you have a little look at Frimpong in an away game who can maybe help you full back a little bit more defensively, but maybe give you a little bit of pace on the outside, as we saw when he comes on. So I think we're at that stage now where Mo Salah shouldn't be a guaranteed starter every week.
We should finish the section on this game, which is most of what we're talking about with Manchester United, and we will, because it's United's day. But just a final thing, just because I'm interested, Jamie, in your opinion, particularly on this. I read a piece the other day, you might have done too, suggesting that this is like Liverpool's transition season a year late. You know, everybody expected
that might have been my piece about a few weeks ago.
Maybe it was, I don't know. But I'm wondering whether that is kind of coming to pass.
Well, listen, I don't think you should say that and use that as like an excuse, because as I go back to the champions who won the league with these have spent 400 million on 2 or 3 of the best players on the market in their position. So transition may be a little bit too strong, but you do feel, and I go back to Paris Saint-Germain last season. When you watch Paris Saint-Germain in the first half of the season, it was like a completely different team to what you saw in the second half of the season. They almost went out of the Champions League group stage. Now, this Liverpool team has to get better. These players with Toronto, Isak and Wirtz and Ekitike who come off the bench, they're too good at players not to improve what they're doing right now. And players who we're looking at here, like, Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah, Konate, those players' performances will improve. So Liverpool will get better. The worry for them is, I think they're going to lose more points between now and the end of January, February, a lot more points. And will Arsenal or Manchester City be too far away from them? Because I think Arsenal right now look the best equipped team to win the title in terms of the way the league is now. It feels like a lot of set pieces, long throws. Liverpool can see the goal again from a set piece. Arsenal look sort of scoring goals from set pieces. They can defend them as well. And they might be better equipped to win this title in terms of how the Premier League is going style-wise from all the teams. But Arsenal will get nervous in March and April because they haven't won a league for so long. And Liverpool and Manchester City need to make sure they're not too far out in front where they can't affect that. And that's the thing about Liverpool now losing these silly points, and I think they'll lose more. They've got to keep Arsenal sort of within arm's length of them.
I think Arne Slot's got a big job to do. I think Liverpool's recruitment has been lauded, and rightly so, for many years. But if you look at the 5 outfield signings, Carragher has not settled in, Frimpong has not settled in, Wirtz has not settled in, Isak's not settled in. Ekitike, I think, has settled in. I think he's probably done okay in the games that he's played in. I think he's obviously done well when he's come on as sub. He looks really sharp. But if you 4 main signings, and the problem is 2 of those are at full back. So for me, I think I'm concerned by Liverpool's fullbacks if I was a Liverpool fan, because that's half your back 4. They didn't get Gay, which is obviously the other bit of recruitment that was supposed to sort out the centre-back partner for, well, with Konate, or sorry, with Van Dijk. So for me, I think the Liverpool signings just haven't got going yet. Once Isak, Wirtz, if Frimpong and Carragher have to settle in, if the left back doesn't settle in, it will be a problem. You cannot have your fullbacks basically not being at a level. You just can't, or else you're going to concede goals.
The thing I find strange about, Liverpool needs a left back. And to become first choice, let's not make no bones about it. Andy Robertson last year won the league title, played week in, week out at left back. But we've been in that position. You were watching a player almost just hanging on a full back. And it can be a position where you're exposed. Now, Carragher is a far better player than Tsimikas. So you think Liverpool should be stronger in that left back area. What I'm surprised at is not that Carragher's his first choice, because I think that was right initially for him to come in. But Robertson's almost getting treated like Tsimikas, where it's like, you never play. You only play unless the left back's injured, or you come on. I
thought Robertson would play today.
Yeah, maybe exactly. But I thought there would have been, and that was my point about bringing a left back in. Andy Robertson needs help, so it was almost I'm surprised he hasn't been given more games. Not just because Carragher hasn't performed that well, just more of actually. He has been a great Liverpool left back. He won the league last season. Carragher is a new player. It almost just feels like it's Carragher as the left back, and that's the end of it. And I find that strange, really, from game one.
Sure. So, Gary, final word on Manchester United. I wonder what this result and the feeling it's given you does to your, I won't say ambitions for them, but what have Manchester United's possibilities become off the back of a day like this?
Look, Peter, honestly, I think Manchester United have got a top 6 squad, particularly when you know that they haven't got European football. and they haven't got Carabao Cup now. So they've got a free week nearly every week for the rest of the season. So for me, I think Manchester United preparing with 3 weeks, with that amount of players in the squad. If you look at the 4 or 5 players they've got up front in Sesko, Cunha, Ahmad, and Burmo, and Mount, Bruno behind them, and then them centre backs they've got Yoro, De Ligt, Maguire, Luke Shaw. They should be able to get a top 6 finish with the 3 weeks out of that squad. So what I'm hoping out of today is, unexpectedly, United find themselves in the top half of the table. I wasn't expecting to be in the top half. I kept looking at thinking we're 12th before the game starts. To be in 9th tonight, honestly now, we've got Brighton next Saturday at home and you've got Nottingham Forest away. Look, the big concern is the Brentford performance, where you go and do well against Chelsea and then Brentford comes. You can't do that. So what can't happen is now we've got to this height of performance and then all of a sudden Brighton ends up being a dip. So the next couple of weeks are huge, I think, for Ruben Amorim to start to build. Ruben Amorim's got to start trusting those players. I know we talk about trusting Ruben Amorim and him sort of being under pressure, and that's always going to be the case with the manager. But Ruben Amorim wants to be able to trust his players. I know he likes them, and I know the players like him. You can see that. There's no sort of players sort of like, losing the dressing room type stuff, which we have seen with United many times. There's no doubt those players admire their coach. They like him as a person. But they've got to start trusting each other. Trust the system if you're the players, but also Ruben Amorim trust his players that they can deliver consistently. So I'm just looking towards next week now. Enjoy tonight because it's one of the greatest moments you can have as a United player, come and winning at Anfield. And it happens rarely. So enjoy tonight. But honestly, lads, you've got to get back at it tomorrow morning. You've got to switch on and focus because next Saturday will kick you right where you don't want it to kick you if you're not at your best. Brighton are a good side. So really start to focus so hard on that in terms of everything that you do this week.
Lovely stuff. I don't think that we need to do too much any other business. This was the story of the weekend. So maybe, Jamie, just before Gary finishes us off, you can tee up Monday Night Football.
Yes, we've got Gary O'Neill coming on. He's obviously out of work at the moment, but he came on a couple of years ago. It was fantastic on the show. We've got, obviously, the game is West Ham Brentford.
Nuno's first home game?
Yes, so obviously we're going to look at that, and you would imagine set pieces, long throws are going to be heavily involved in the game. So that's something we might look at after the game at 10:30, where the Premier League's going in terms of set pieces. Liverpool have lost the game on a set piece. Arsenal win again yesterday on a set piece. Long throws. Manchester United, today taking plenty of long throws. So we've got 2 teams like that. We'll obviously look at this. We look at the situation with Ange and Nottingham Forest as well, and probably look at Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, as that was a great game.
That was a mess, wasn't it? Ange then having to go. They were always going to probably lose against Chelsea at home. So why not just sack him before the international break ended, rather than after the game yesterday? I thought it really strange that, and then the owner leaving the stand, 30 minutes before the end of the game, and then being sacked 19 minutes after a game. I just think there's a way to do it. I mean, the style differential between Nuno and Ange, we all said it at the time, couldn't have been any more stark. So how he was going to implement that change mid-season, I just think it was really going to always be difficult. Look, I'm not saying that Ange, didn't need to go because of the results, and sometimes, you've been in a position whereby you realise your mistake quickly and you make it, but just a little bit unsavoury, I felt, in terms of the way in which it ended. I don't know what you thought.
No, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the media or people like us questioning, and the supporters were putting that much pressure on, on the manager, and you're seeing him come out fighting, did you, in the press conference before the game, and in some ways I admire that, but you bring it up. The Ange Postecoglou's lost 31 out of 50 his last 50 Premier League games, so he doesn't like to look at that. He likes to look at the fact that they won, a trophy at Tottenham's a huge success, but as other people look at the other, the flip side of that coin as well. Really, it didn't feel like a great appointment, and yes, it hasn't gone well, but maybe they've made the right decision, obviously, in their eyes. But it's going to be really interesting to see where they're going, because it looks like it could be Sean Dyche now. That shows how fearful they are of actually relegation, and that comes from the fact that Sunderland and Burnley are actually doing well and getting points on the board. That's the real worry in the Premier League this season for teams, that they could go down. That worry hasn't been there for the last couple of seasons, so it might be a case of bring Sean Dyche in and do the job that he did at Everton, keep Nottingham Forest in the league.
And the fact they're in trouble obviously also plays into the fact they promoted teams are doing really well, which is great for the league. And I'm glad you're doing Palace and Bournemouth too, because those are
don't hold me to that. That's
no,
not,
well,
I mean,
whatever.
I don't want their fans on my
But
case.
you
They're
mentioned
in the
it,
mix.
Carra. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
And Palace and Bournemouth are absolutely deserving of a mention. So
Yeah.
that's great. It's been a terrific Premier League weekend. Well done, Gary. Thank you.
Has it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
It's been as good as it ever could be, actually.